awesome afternoon, magnificent evening, and wonderful morning to everyone in the world who is on this broadcast. And I'm excited to be here. This is Carla from MindPlore with Carla and Friends. And today we are talking about empowering our vision using our imagination. We forget to do things because we don't realize that we create our world in our own mind. And as we create our world, that's how it goes. If we create the world saying, I cannot sing, then you're going to believe I cannot sing. But if you want to change your vision and change your mindset to I can sing, and this is something I've been told all my life, and I'm changing it to I can sing, then I'm going to be able to sing. We have today the wonderful Ingolf Wunder, who is an amazing musician, Raushawna Price, who is an amazing coach, and Irving Jenkins, who is kind of taking Jean's moment here because Jean is in a elementary school today teaching second graders. We'll see how long this lasts. She was very hesitant when I spoke to her last night. But remember, we're bigger than the second graders, so we can get further.
I don't know. There's power in numbers.
Right. Having said that, Victor, would you like to introduce yourself and give your thoughts on the topic while I do what I need to do to get the show moving?
I repeat myself. My name is Victor Irving Jenkins, and I happen to be an expert on Victor Irving Jenkins. In fact, I'm the only expert on Victor Irving Jenkins, and thank goodness no one else has that job because I happen to be so good at being Victor Irving Jenkins. I'm pleased to be part of Carla's MindPlore broadcast this morning, and in my world, and the way I see things, the way I look at things, Carla was attracted by me into my life, and I was attracted by Carla into her life. And when I look at things that way, I'm less bothered, I'm less unhappy, I'm less disappointed because I look at every single thing that turns up in my life as something that I brought. And I do this consciously every day. And as long, I think as long as the person realizes that whatever it is that's in their life, they brought it, they tend to be a little less excited. They tend to be, they manage their life differently. They don't have very much unhappiness. And the reason that you don't is that if you make something and you create it and you're the one that did it, well, how are you going to be upset about it? You did it. So the thing about the imagination is so critical because I imagine myself to be the person that you see before you. And in everyone's life, the person that the rest of us see is the person that they imagine themselves to be, no matter what they say. And often, we have to reconcile what comes out of someone's mouth with what we see. And at the age I'm getting now, I'm beginning to understand that many times the best response from me is no response. Because when Ingolf says that everybody can sing, even if I don't think I can sing, that's not anything to be talking about. And if someone wants to prove to him that they can't sing, well, then allow them to prove to them that they can't sing. But whatever it is they find themselves, it's right up here. And I want to thank all of you for being here today. That's about 2 minutes, and I'm going to relinquish the virtual lectern to the person I just alluded to. Ingolf, good morning. Tell us about it.
Very good morning. It's actually afternoon here. I'm in Zurich, Switzerland. But it's very nice to be here. So I can't agree more. what you just said. It's we create our own personal reality, and in a way, we are the. It's not just a cheesy phrase to say you are the author of your story or you are the creator of your world, because you are. I know, life can seem not fair sometimes if you think that external things are responsible for your own misery or for your own the good things that happen to you. But in fact, your one is responsible by himself, as you said. And the earlier one gets that, the better the life will be, because the mind is more formable with all the theta brainwaves and all of that. The first 7 years, and the earlier a kid understands this, the happier the life is going to be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's wonderful. Before we talk to Raushawna?
Yes.
Okay, what's Raushawna? You mentioned something about vibration just now, or frequency just now, and there's something to this, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have never mentioned the word Zurich before in my entire life that I can remember. I was watching television the other night, and one scene in the program, the main character was in the Zurich airport. And that registered with me at that moment that she was in Zurich airport, and I started to think, oh, Zurich. I wonder what it would be like to be in Zurich. I wonder this about Zurich, that about Zurich. And then here I am, and you're talking, so I'm getting goosebumps now, because each time one of my thoughts get validated, or each time it seems that I was right about something, I get a little goosebumps. So thank you for that little moment. Thank you for being in Zurich.
Zurich Airport is a very nice airport, by the way. But let me ask you, how long are you doing this? Like actively envisioning and.
Probably, if I had to put a number on it, I would say I began probably about 12 years ago. But as far as getting into where I believe it and I live and I talk about it all the time, it's probably about 4 years or so.
Yeah.
And it's like my father said, by the time you learn how to live life, it's it's time to die. It takes you all your whole life. But but the millennials and the people after them, because of the access they have to information, they're kind of throwing that to the wind, because they are learning a lot of things. You are learning a lot of things at an earlier age. Things that you know now, I found out when I was 50. So, but by the time you learn how to live life, it's not going to be time to die. Let's hear Raushawna's feedback. Raushawna, what's your contribution?
Yeah, so thanks for having me on today. It's great to be back. When we think about vision and imagination and all the things that you all have said, the manifestation of your words coming into action, the vibration of how music and notes, tone, what you believe, all of that, I agree 100%. I tend to also think about the imagination part of our topic, that childlike faith, exploration, the open way in which children really show up before they're programmed to be quiet, to be seen and not heard. When they show up and they are playful, and what is normally a kitchen towel that's for drying, and now all of a sudden it's a cape, and they're transcended into being a superhero. That same childlike energy is within us as adults. And it's our role, for those of us that know it and really live it out on a daily moment to moment basis, is to help others tap into it, whether they are 5, 55, 105. Tap into that imagination to really then go, if you can imagine it and play with it, you've already created it, because it exists in your mind, and now you can live it out in your life.
Well, thank you very much. And just before we move on, I just want to show you that.
Victor,
Yes.
we'll talk about that later. In imagining your life and wanting your life to be where it is, it means being able to dream. And many people are afraid of dreaming. They think if they dream, they're not going to be going anywhere in life. So I think we need to talk about that a little, because our goals and our dreams really work together, and people get afraid of that. And I saw you nod your head, Raushawna. So let's hear what you have to say.
Yeah, so I'm nodding and going yes, because oftentimes the cliche or what's put out there is think big, dream big, and then fear comes in. So it's scary. And then the dream big actually becomes, well, not so big, right? Like maybe study the piano, but not be the best at it. Like, do you really want everyone to know you're the best? Because that comes with problems, or people are going to ask you to do more with it, or then you're going to be known or seen. And so teaching people that dreaming is okay, it's necessary. And then the bigger the dream, the bigger the opportunity for your life to be, not on the outside, on the inside. Because that's where we're experiencing life first, is from the inside out. And so when you were sharing that, that was the first thing that came up, is that cliche, and really then getting people to actually live into it.
Right. And why do you think people are so afraid of doing that? Why? You know,
why is the fear?
I know my father. I once said, we can create peace in the world. And my father looked at me and said, you're dreaming. And I said, why are you, you know, I couldn't say to my father, but I thought, why are you feeling like this about it? Mm-hmm. So I'm wondering, fear, where does the fear come from? How is it created?
The origin of fear, excuse me, like many other thoughts that we have, is unknown. It really isn't. True enough, fear is an emotion that plagues a lot of people, but so is faith. So fear and faith come as a result of how we organize our thoughts. How we organize our thoughts really starts from the time we're in my mother's womb. I use myself as an example, and if I get too deep, just let me know. But for about 15 years of my life, I literally suffered with anxiety attacks where I thought 5, 10, 15 times a day something horrible was going to happen, and there was nothing that I could do about it. No idea what it was, but I just knew it was going to be horrible, and oh my God, what am I going to do? So I lived through that for about 15 years. As I began to explore the origin of that, which is really fear magnified, as I began to explore the origin, I went to my parents, I talked to my mom, I talked to my dad, and talked to my siblings, my older siblings who were in the family that could tell me things that I was too young to know. But apparently, my mother had a tough pregnancy with me. My mother lived in an environment where she was always stressed. She described her dad as a mean man. She described her first boyfriend as a mean man. So while I'm in her womb, right? While my spirit is in her womb and taking in all the trouble that she's having, that became the norm for me. This is what I think. And this is just a belief of mine. That became the norm for me. And as I developed outside of the womb and got 4 years old, 5 years old, 6 years old, and got to the place where I could make conscious decisions, because it didn't feel good, I suppressed it for as much as I could, right? And then as I aged and started imbibing in substances that engaged my subconscious mind when I didn't want it to be engaged, I started to have these experiences. And knowing that and coming to realize that I was making it all up and I was creating it, eventually after 15 years it went away. So in terms of where does the fear come from, I think it originates before we have the conscious power to negate it.
Okay, Ingolf, thank you. And I think it is an unconscious thing. I agree with that. But we also need to go back and move on, because our fears are something that grow inside of us. And it's something that we may not know how it goes. Ingolf, do you have something to say on this?
Well, lots of things are triggering. I mean, of course, before you were born and in the first 7 years, obviously you're in the programming phase. You get your program that you will play subconsciously your whole life, and it's very hard to change that program. I mean, it's possible, of course, but it's only as an adult with repetition and repetition and repetition. And as a kid, you don't have to do it; you just get it, and so either you get the right thing or not. And so fears, of course, we are social beings, so we always. I'm not too sophisticated in that reptile brain part of the of the human being, but I think it has a lot to do with the fight and flight and with the just simply survival instinct that you look at everything funny that you don't know, you constantly pattern match to to past experiences, and you just check if it's going to be safe or not. And I think this is, of course, also an origin of the fears. And since we are social beings, it's also about always what the other one will think, although it's completely irrelevant what other ones think about you. But we, without wanting, care about it in a way. So you have to always have to kind of get over that. And I think, but once you do it, it gets easier. It's like with the once propaganda is propaganda, it doesn't work on you anymore. It doesn't matter how often they do it to you. So this is the same thing with this. Once you get over the hump, you're good to go.
Yeah.
Victor, Ingolf, can you do me one favor? Slow down your speech for those who may be listening and are not used to listening to English. You say such great things. So does everyone here. It's wonderful.
All right.
Yes, Raushawna.
Yeah, oh no, you're good. I was just gonna add that I also think that fear gets a bad rap. So we have to be taught that fear can also be one side of a two-sided coin. So fear is also excitement without a destination. That's how I like to talk about it. It's this knowing that, it can show up and be scary. To Ingolf's point, it is unknown. And so you look at it sideways and go, is this okay? Is it not? This opportunity may be presented in a way that shows up and it's scary. And on the other side of that scary is a whole bunch of, but what if this is awesome? What if this is amazing? And internally, it can feel the same way. It can be that same feeling of fear and excitement of, I want this and I don't want this. And so that's where the learning comes in and the understanding that you experience in your life. And then you can change it to really allow that emotion to propel you forward.
It's interesting that you say that, because the way my fear and anxiety went away was just as suddenly as it came, and that's another story. But one day, I said to myself, wait a minute! This is supposed to be fun! And just like that, the fear was transformed from what it was to what it is now, which is a never-ending euphoria and excitement to be alive and to infect as many people as I can with that excitement.
That's very good. Here, one thing triggered, because when I give masterclasses on the instrument, sometimes I have lots of students that, I don't teach so much, but most of them have the problem of stage fright or anxiety on stage. And I always say that in the brain, as you said, Raushawna, excitement or fear, it's exactly the same chemical that is created. And it's basically the switch in the brain which makes it going from fear to excitement. And once you do this, the whole world looks different, and you're not fearful anymore. You just dig it.
Exactly.
Digging it. Isn't that a real shift of mindset? Because many times, I know if someone said, Carla, sing in public, I would say, no. But then I've begun singing happy birthday to people until my sister said, please don't sing to me. And it didn't work very well for me because it made me feel, well, you know, this is what I've been told all my life. But the point is, fear creeps in very funny ways. How can we use our imagination to empower the goals we want? You know, Ingolf, you want to be this famous musician. How are you using your goals to empower that vision?
Well, you see,
your imagination. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, I knew what you wanted to say. Yeah, I mean, I have to say I was probably quite lucky as well, because many things were going already my way without me consciously doing it. And now that I know so many things about this kind of topic, I look back and I see, well, actually exactly this I did. You know, I envisioned, I did all that. I had my wall of how do you call it, imagination, and I put it on paper, and I envisioned it every day, and but I was not doing it as a, you know, you gotta do that in order to get it. It just wasn't natural for me. And but having said this, of course, lots of things go wrong in life, also did in my life. And then you have to overcome each and every one of these problems. And I then step by step learned the technique of controlling my own reality. And ever since I do that very consciously, just life is so much better.
Yeah.
Okay, Raushawna.
Yeah. It's, as you're saying it, I'm like, absolutely. It becomes this repetitive process. And there's this understanding, as you're saying, it's knowing that if all you know is it's gonna be scary and no one else ever gives you and it could be great too. It could be awesome. Let's just think about what could happen when you do start playing. That allows fear to start to decide, what does it want to do and why is it showing up? Sometimes fear shows up to then say, yeah, let's do this. It's going to be scary and we want to jump into the pool. We want to do that. Also, the other thing about it, when you're imagining, is sometimes what I'll do and what I coach clients to do as well is you can imagine that it's not just you there, that there's another version of you. So right now I have on a sweatshirt and I've got these headphones on. If I decided to reach over and put my glasses on, I could imagine all of a sudden now that there's another version of me that's going to show up. That's a little bit more intellectual and maybe I'll talk a little different, but that could have me show up in a way that gives something else. Or I take them off and it's fine. Maybe I don't need it. Maybe it's a bracelet. Maybe it's something that's unseen. And even teaching people to go, it's okay if I have fear, but there can be another me that shows up too that helps me get over that fear. So I'm not alone.
Right. And no one is alone.
Exactly.
What do you think, Victor?
Well, that's the reason. The reason I showed that book, The Power of the Subconscious Mind. I think that some may not realize there's actually just one mind with two phases that can manifest as two different entities. I personally believe that it is the subconscious mind, the one that was in my mama's tummy, that's really been running my life until my conscious mind took over. Now, when my conscious mind took over, the idea that there's two of me started to grow. So now this repetition, this spaced repetition habit that I've developed every day on a daily basis, my conscious mind is talking to my subconscious mind and telling it what I want, plainly and simply. And from what I understand in my studies, the subconscious mind is not able to distinguish good from bad, right from wrong, up from down. It just takes what my conscious mind gives it, and in the words of Raushawna, makes it so. It just takes whatever my conscious mind gives it and makes it so. And while I am reluctant to control everything, that comes into my conscious mind. I'm more and more getting to the point that, maybe my wife is right, that I shouldn't be watching this particular program. Because see, whether whether I want to admit it or not, I mean, I get these certain excitement, these nerve endings get stimulated when I watch certain types of television programs. But there's a portion of what I'm watching that's sinking deep in my subconscious mind, and my subconscious mind thinks it's real. So, as I'm making a statement right now, I'm thinking, maybe I do need to consciously allow less things in. Because while I can consciously decide something is good or bad, my subconscious mind can't. And who knows, I might be attracting things in the way that I don't want to attract them. Because while I have a good feel for the fact that what I think and what I bring about, I haven't got it perfected yet. And I don't think you're allowed to get it perfected while you're mortal. I think you can only perfect it after you're gone.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But the unconscious mind, in my thinking, is in your soul. It's in that silent place. And unless we begin to become aware of who we really are, we cannot know where we are going.
Well, it's the point of distinguishing the unconscious mind from the subconscious. We're talking about the subconscious, and I think that's probably what you're talking about as well. But since you said unconscious, I just thought I'd make the correction, make the distinction, just in case you said what you meant to say.
Okay, thank you. Raushawna, you looked like you wanted to say something.
Well, what I'm fascinated with in this conversation that we're having is, regardless of what you believe and what your faith is, there is this universal energy that flows when we're in a place where we're really working in our gifts and our talents. When you're doing the thing that you're called to do, time moves in a way that either really, really speeds up for you and you don't even know that 10 minutes has felt. It's like, oh my gosh, this was 10 minutes, it's over already. Or it's when you're not, time is moving really slowly. And so I bring that up because this is fascinating to me around this imagination part, because whether it comes from whatever you decide to call it, it's universal. So when you're doing that, then there is less fear or no fear. None of the negative emotions are there. All of these positive emotions are there because you're doing the thing that you're called to do. And so when I think about this visioning and the topic we're talking about today of that, bringing your vision and using your imagination, it's from the knowing that when you are doing the thing you're called to do, you have these indicators. And when we focus on the indicators and oh, I was just doing that, what was that thing? You can do more of it and you can create from there and imagine from there.
Right. And that's what they're talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the whole thing of Abraham Hicks. Become more aware of who you are. Become more aware of what you are about.
Right.
Ingolf.
Well, there's so many things that it's always like triggering, and then I don't know what to say. So the thing about the subconscious mind, I mean, I totally agree. You have to, of course, I mean, that's the one thing is you can't live, I think, in our world, whatever it is, whether it's a simulation or not, you can't live in our world without the subconscious. So the subconscious is running your show. Mm-hmm. But it's totally right that in order to change your program, you have to use your conscious mind in order to control what becomes your program, right? And once it does, it runs the show again. And at the end of the day, I think, I'm not sure if I'm right, but I think you control it with feeling at the end, because everything is getting converted to a feeling at the end, and then it tells you, was that right or was that not right. It depends. I mean, it not depends. It doesn't matter if it's a small thing. If you play the piano and you did just a place this way or that way, and you get the response that, oh, that felt good or that didn't, or you do a life change and then after half a year you get the feeling back whether it was a good choice or not. So I think it's this emotion.
Slow down.
The emotion and the gut feeling that tells you whether you're doing the right thing. And I think it's very important to start listening to this kind of feeling and to the emotions.
Carla, I'd like to introduce 2 quotes, if I may.
Oh, wonderful.
Quote number 1, and actually they're really saying the same thing. Let's see. The treasure you seek is in the cave you fear.
Okay, who said that?
I don't remember, but somebody said, somebody smarter than me.
Okay.
And the second one is, when there's no enemy within, the enemy without cannot hurt you.
An enemy within. Do you know who said that, Victor?
No, I don't. I just use their stuff.
Okay. Then, in my mind, the enemy within is that fear and focusing on what is outside of you instead of what is inside of you. For example, I've had many things that I had to get over fear in the past few years, and especially recently with this problem in my apartment with the leak. This kind of put me in a fear mode, or I could continue doing my work, continue doing what I love to do, and get out of the fear. And we all have that choice. There's that coin that we throw up, and it could either be heads, the positive, or it can be the negative, the other way. And I made a very big time conversion problem today that I didn't realize that in Pakistan, and maybe even for Ingolf, this show is an hour earlier than you would have thought it would be, because I didn't change the time for the people in the United States. We should have been doing it at 12:30, making it 9:30 in Pakistan. And for you, I believe it would have been 6:30, correct? Or 5? What's the normal
5?
time?
It was 5:30. It's 4:30 today.
Sorry about that. That was my mistake. We make mistakes, and then we get involved with, oh my God, I really screwed up. And instead of thinking, oh my God, I really screwed up, we could be thinking, oh my God, we have a new way of doing this, and we got everyone here, and I'm not sure how we did it, but we did it. Except we didn't get the Pakistani, because she's the one who said, this show doesn't start for half an hour. I just got the message, and I'm like, really? You know, and I understood. So the show will be at its normal time on Thursday.
It was it was wave field entanglement in my case, because I think I would have missed it, because in my calendar it was as always, and then just out of something I checked the messenger 7 minutes before you guys started, and I thought, okay, room's open. All right, let's go.
And I was wondering, because you're always on time, and I'm wondering, where is Ingolf?
And I probably wouldn't have been on had it been at 12:30 Eastern time.
Right, it would have been confusing to you. So, we're doing it, and I'm looking, and usually there's an audience, and they're not here because of all of this time difference issue. Okay, so let's go on. And what would you like to say, Raushawna?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm where we are right now, all the things that we've shared and talked about, I'm in agreement with. I also think that there are other negative emotions. We talked a lot about fear. Shame holds people back from using their imagination, from being able to really envision something that is bigger than they are, especially without a roadmap. Shame can be the thing that says, you want to do what? And you don't even know how to do that. Or you don't even know anyone that's done that. Does that even exist? And shame will be the one to say, you're crazy, when internally there is a knowing that it's done because it's created up here in the mind. And maybe there isn't a path yet, and you're actually the person to pave the path, to start creating what does it look like. And so I just wanted to share that as well, as I've been thinking about all that we're talking about, because for some of the listeners, they may be the first person to think of a thing and do the thing, and there is no path. That's why they're here. That's what they were created to do, which is to create the path.
Yeah, you're so right with the sorry.
No, go on and go.
No, with the shame, it's just because here I have it's something triggered, and this is complexes of people. Usually, what creates shame in you is a reaction to somebody with a complex himself, telling you that it's not the right thing to do, or how can you do this, or how can you do that? Never been done before, or what do you think? You are so good, all these things, so again, like with the propaganda, if one realizes that this is actually, some fault on their side that creates that in you, that's gone.
Exactly. It has no power.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That could also go for this whole thing of COVID. People are so afraid of getting...
You had to do that, didn't you?
I'm like, where are we going?
Yeah, I mean, it's in our minds. You can only, you create whatever happens to you in your mind, and you can change it around in a second by deciding, I don't want to be there. I want to be here. If that makes sense. And people are nodding, so
that enemy within, I believe, is your actual subconscious mind. Your subconscious mind is where your paradigm lives, and it doesn't like to change. It wants to do the same thing it's been doing since you were in your mother's womb, and it just wants to keep doing that same thing, whatever that was. That creates your paradigm. So that enemy that's within is affecting the things that are without. Because if I got no problem with me, I'm certainly not going to have any problem with you. I'm not going to have any problem with the world if I got no problem with me. It's a difficult thing to do, but it is doable. And the thing that happens as you get better and better at training that subconscious mind is that problems seem to disappear gradually, and with nothing to work out or nothing to fix, it gets a little boring. So that's the flip side of it all. If you were able to manage everything, what would you do? You just wash, rinse, repeat. Wash, rinse, repeat. You want to do something else. So the paradigm resides in our subconscious mind. And once we manage that darn thing, boy, life certainly gets a lot easier to live.
Yeah, and you
Yes.
can do the projects. Sorry,
No,
Rushan.
no, you're good. You're right. Yeah, it does. I do have to go on the record to say, I know we were talking about COVID before that. And so I just have to go on the record to say, I want to make sure that for the listeners out there that understand from my perspective that the science behind the virus, all of that, I have to say it's out there. We know it exists, how people deal with it, all of that. So just the way you said it, I want to make sure that that's clear for listeners, so that there isn't any question around the belief in the virus, because we do know that that propaganda is out there as well. So I just wanted to be clear on my stance.
But I'm saying, oh, it actually is. And I probably did not say that very well, and I should not have gone there. But the point is, we also create in our minds what is there and what we want in our lives, and whether we're doing it consciously or subconsciously.
Correct. Yes.
Whatever we don't want, we may have. If we're thinking, I don't want COVID, and we're thinking about, or I don't want to get a cold, and you're thinking about that 24/7,
you're gonna get a cold.
I just wanted to ask you, are you thinking as much about all the other thousands of viruses that are in your nose?
Yes, all the other things. Ultimately, the brain can't process don'ts, right? If I say, don't think about a purple frog, every listener is now going, is there a purple frog? Should there be? What does it look like? Right? Or don't think about your hunger. Now, all of a sudden, your stomach's going to be growling. You'll be thinking about the last meal. So we need to tell it what to think about. Think about solving your problem. Think about creating something good. Think about finishing the next task. And so that's it. Memorizing the music. My son's a musician. He plays percussion. And so memorizing 7 sheets of music. He's like, I just take it 1 sheet at a time, Mom, 1 line at a time.
But your energy is where you put your mind at.
Exactly. So, yes.
Yeah.
You know, I'm just really got it turned way down now, because my pie hole can talk this whole hour. There's all sorts of, you know, the thing about managing yourself as I do and dealing with my subconscious mind, it's pretty easy for me to forget that the viewers of this show, the people that watch this video, they may not think about things the way that we seem to be thinking about things. And in a sense, they are learning from watching us. They're learning, you know, just like we quote certain people, I imagine that there are people that's watching that's going to be quoting us and actually meditating on what we're saying. And in that regard, it's not as simple as just saying how it is, even though that's what I want to do.
But Victor, keep in mind, no 2 people think exactly alike. And it's how we use our words, how we translate words in our own perception, that creates our world.
Right.
I use this analogy of a house. If you've lived in an apartment and all your friends have lived in apartments for all your life, your understanding of what a house is going to be different from someone who has lived in a townhouse with all the houses connected, or a person living in a single family house with land all around them.
Yeah, and that's with all fields of thought this way. In all the fields that of professions, whatever you do, it's the same thing. You are always living your, let's say you are receiving the input from the other person and playing it back in your own personal reality. But once one is aware of that, one can easier kind of guess what the other one might go through, and but you will never be sure, obviously, and that's also the wonderful thing about life.
Yeah, You never know. That's why I get to ask and learn, and somebody else's thinking and what they're envisioning. What do they see and feel and sense?
Exactly. That's right.
Yeah. Go ahead, Victor. You were going to share?
Just a quote, another quote. My ultimate quote, this one I love more than anything else, and I have to feed it to you just right. It goes like this. And I hope you haven't heard it before, because if you've heard it before, it's going to be no big deal. To those that believe, fill in the blank, right? Mm-hmm. To those that believe, fill in the blank, proof is unnecessary. To those that don't believe, fill in the blank, proof is impossible. God, I love that. I love that.
But truth is beyond the words. Truth is beyond everything we think. It's in that silence that creates our world.
I don't think I mentioned truth. I said proof.
Even proof. Even that proof.
Because if you don't believe what I just said, then you just don't believe it. Really?
You proved yourself right.
Right. Evidence.
And if you believe it, you don't need no proof. That is so deep. I love that. Huh? Is it, Carla?
And proof is in what you see sometimes. It's it's outside of you. But truth is within you. Or that's what I think and feel. Yeah. You're nodding your head, Ingolf. What are you thinking?
I'm just processing. Well, you see, I mean, like truth. Yeah, we really have to go deep on that one because, you know, I mean, with our landscape of truths and sciences and whatever, and however it's misused and used right. Truth is a tricky one. So
he's tiptoeing right now.
Yeah, no, truth is a tricky one. As I said, I mean, I totally believe that this quote is awesome. What triggered immediately was like you talk to a flat earther about about the Earth is round, and it would be exactly that. There would be no proof for such a person, and the other way around for you neither if you think the Earth is round, and which is most likely true, but who knows?
The only thing that I urge you is to believe something. Right.
Exactly, and then you have to investigate and make and not just take something for granted, and really dig and check the facts yourself as much as you can. Do the math, and then it will be a good opinion or a feeling about an opinion.
I hope you remember that quote for a long time. Raushawna, you were trying to say something?
No, I'm just, I'm taking it all in because when we get to truth and belief and all of that, I often think about how when people approach me and they know that I'm a believer in Jesus and the Lord, and then they're asking me, well, how do you know? How do you know this to be true? And all I can do is speak from the evidence that has been in my life, and then the choices that I've made of what I call it. So if I was born and raised in a different country in a different time, I may call it something different, experience it differently, but because of where I've been born, how I've been raised, I choose to call it and believe it as this, and then I have personal evidence of it. So when we're talking about truth and what it means, it's relative because our experiences are different, and we pull from different evidences of that. And so we can both have we can be saying the same thing, having different evidence. Right? We can both be talking about apples, but your evidence of an apple is red and mine is green. Right?
Yeah.
and they can both be true, and that's okay.
Yes. And it's also what triggered here's trust, because it's a social thing as well. Because if you, at the end of the day, if you dig deep into subjects, which I like to do, then at some point you reach a point where you have to trust people that are either smarter than you or that have spent more time researching something. And then it's at the end of the day whom you trust. And this is, and then again, how you evaluate whom to trust.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, I love it. You could just keep going into that. Yes.
You know, I have this kind of conversation every day of my life. It's just I'm having it with you right now. This is where I live. This is my wheelhouse.
That's good.
Yeah.
And it's true that truth, whatever we call truth, is different for every individual in the world. It can't be the same for anyone, because we all think differently. We all use words differently.
Yeah.
And I remember having conversations with people where they told me something and I'm like, oh, but we're really saying the same words. And they're saying, no, we're not. We are saying different words and we don't agree. And I'm like, okay, I give up. Because it's not worth it.
Right. And sometimes words can mess up translation altogether. So we started this kind of talking about feelings and some of the feelings that go really deep within us. I've traveled all across. I've been to 5 continents. I have worship next to people that don't speak the same language. And our context of worship was similar. Now, what we were saying in our minds, language-wise, totally different because we have different language. But the feeling was exactly or very similar in what we were both there for, which was this higher connection to a higher being, this higher thing, spirit, soul. And so sometimes language, I'm like, let's not even talk about it. Let's paint it in a picture, because maybe the picture will bring it to life more. Or I grew up in a singing family. I know how to sing somewhat. Sometimes music, art, right? Music and art can transcend language. Right. When you're in a performance and it just swells in some way, whatever that is, it touches and brings people to tears. We don't have language. Sometimes there's no language. It just was. Or if you've ever been in an auditorium and it's over, and even before the applause, there's this like, oh, that is something. And sometimes there's no language. It just is. And it's beautiful. And it is heart to heart, soul to soul. And so when I think about all the ways in which we're talking about what this looks like and sounds like and feels like, that's why we're beings with all these senses, because sometimes this can be quiet. It doesn't need to say anything.
Now, I have a question, and I know I can answer from all of you, but we're not going to take long answers. I have also, when you're thinking about things like this, thought maybe we really are computers and someone else is guiding the computer to do certain things. And when we don't listen, it becomes very negative. And when we listen, things go smoothly. What do you think of that? How should we be envisioning? Should we be envisioning our dreams? Or should we envision what everyone says we should be? Mom and dad want you to be a doctor. Your sister wants you to be a teacher. What is it? Where do we really live in the world? And are we really computers?
It's a possible. Because in the Bible, it says all things are possible to them that believe. Because it says that, I'll give you, it's a possibility that we're computers. It's a possibility only in the context of all things being possible. I would consider it a remote possibility because of this thing called a soul or a spirit. Because of the experiences I had with anxiety attacks, I don't know that there's an objective way to identify that. Or I don't know if there is a tangible thing that can represent the feelings that I used to have. So in that regard, I would negate the true possibility that we could simply be computers. Because the computers that I know, they simply do and behave like I program it to do and behave. I'm just not sure that there's a way to program a feeling or there are circuits that you can change that would create a feeling in the object that you're making a change in. Ingolf, why are you laughing?
Because getting very deep.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
So, yeah, no, I mean, this is, I spend lots of time thinking whether we live in a simulation or not, which is basically what you're asking. But I usually come to the conclusion, maybe it's self-defense, that it doesn't really matter if we do or don't, because the experience in the five senses world would be the same. Even if it's scripted or if it's naturally built, we would still have to deal with everything that we have to deal with. And speaking out of experience, the tough, rough paths usually lead to a more happy outcome or happy life. If something wasn't easy and you went through it, then you're feeling better afterwards. And if it was coming too easy, it's usually also gone quite quickly, and you're unhappy often. Mm-hmm. And so I think we need another talk for the simulation thing. But I think it's important to come back to the topic. I definitely believe we are the whether in a simulation or not, we are the architects of our own mind, and we are in charge of our vision and imagination, and one just has to have belief in oneself and just go for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't spend a lot of time thinking about if we are computers or live in a simulation. So what I would say is, if that imagination allows you to move forward, to create what you feel internally you're supposed to create to live out your dreams, then do that. It doesn't hurt me if you do that, if you think about it that way. So that's what I would say to all of what we're talking about, is how you decide to approach it. You may come from a different standpoint than I do, yet if it's serving you well and it's not hurting anyone else, for you to think a certain way, behave a certain way that helps you live out this life experience wholeheartedly, do it. Do it.
And Raushawna, I'm very much like you. I don't think about being a computer. But every once in a while, that idea pops into my mind. Mm-hmm. And it pops in because I do wonder, how are we wired? How did the idea of a computer ever come to be? And I like science fiction, so I get into it every once in a while.
Yeah, it's imagination. It's there. Go with it, right? Like, go with it, especially if it serves you well to move forward. It's one thing if it's hindering you from then making progress towards something, or it's allowing you to show up in a way that's unkind or unhealthy to others. But if it's simply imagination that then allows you to create something, do it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And if we don't use our imagination, then it's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
May I ask Ingolf a question before we leave?
Yeah, and then we are going to be closing.
You ever heard of Liberace?
Of course.
So Liberace and who was the famous pianist? Is there any distinction between the pianists, really? I mean, are there classical pianists versus rock and roll pianists? Is there any significant difference from a musical standpoint?
Well, a lot of difference. This, again, you ask
It's a whole show.
Yes,
That's a whole show.
Okay. Can either of them play the same music? Like could Liberace play what Jerry Lee
yeah.
Lewis plays? Could Jerry Lee Lewis play what Little Richard plays?
Well, definitely not the same way, because otherwise, the artistic differences is exactly what makes an artist great. So, of course, he cannot play the same. Can he play the same repertoire or the same pieces sometimes? Yes, sure. But it will depend how he can pull it off, how much imagination he has.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's great.
And I agree with that, because again, we're talking about individuals, and no individual is exactly alike.
Mhm.
We are all very, very different.
I take it you have pianists on YouTube. You got videos of you playing piano?
I do.
Okay, I'll be checking it out today.
Please do so.
He's amazing.
Yes. It has definitely been a pleasure being on the show today. I do have to go. So I know that we're still live. So if we're going to cut off, I just wanted to tell everyone goodbye and thank you.
We're doing it now. We will be back on Thursday at the regular time. So it'll be an hour later, which is really fascinating to me. And we will be speaking about empowering our visions. So can we all wave goodbye? And we are going off air.